that awkward pause again, he just told me. That's good.
We don't need it
Apparently don't. We're rolling now, so.
right now? Oh, okay.
Mr. Hansen,
Good morning. Yeah,
be a friend.
good to meet you.
Board chair, and we'll have all the other board members introduce themselves. If you would
Okay.
make yourself comfortable in that chair, please.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Jack Frost.
Good to meet you.
Tim Kavanaugh.
Nice to meet you.
Jim Begley.
Good to meet you.
Mike McGowan.
Hey,
Gwen
John.
Howard.
Hey, Gwen.
Tom Dowd.
Good to meet you.
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Good morning. We, after we introduce to all the board members, we will have a structured interview where we ask each candidate the same questions. Mr. Bagley will read the questions, and at the end, we'll give you an opportunity. So if you have questions of us, we'll give you an opportunity to ask us questions. So unless you have any other questions, we'll just go ahead and begin. If you have any preliminary questions.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Jimmy?
To begin, please take 5 minutes and tell us why you think this is the right opportunity for you at this point in your career and why you think you might be the right leader for MUD.
Certainly. So my background is born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. Grew up on a farm on 192nd and F Street, 160 acres, no longer a farm. I appreciate the what you do. We lived in a farmhouse until I was in the 6th grade, and we had one light bulb in each one of the rooms, and we had no running water, so no bathroom facilities until I was in the 6th grade. So I really appreciate what you all do. I was very fortunate in life to attain a job at OPPD and work in public power for 29 years. During that time, I grew up there. I went to night school to get my engineering degree for 10 years. Graduated in 1986. Continued to work at OPPD in various positions. I worked in the architectural engineering group, kind of doing renovations and remodeling, and worked on the Energy Plaza. I spent 10 years in operations, and that was in numerous of the service centers and in the downtown facility and some of the power plants, everything but the nuclear plant. I was also allowed at a point in time, so the last 8 years at the facility or at OPPD, I was allowed to start up a kind of an energy services division that could make the appropriate margin. Basically, we wanted to start up commercial products and services for business, commercial industrial companies that customers, and I was able to do that and start up and pay for a group of 14 people and a little bit of margin to put back into the business to provide energy services. So after that long 29-year career, I went from a junior engineering aide in 1976 to one of the top 30 division managers, and was all said and good. But in my mind, I was able to be successful at OPPD, and I wondered if I could be successful someplace else. An opportunity came up at the Med Center, which I will tell you, I had no clue in 2005 what the Med Center would be. I didn't know what that job would totally entail. I took it on, and it's been a wonderful opportunity of experience in the healthcare industry and what they do. But I will tell you and just lastly, that my experience in public utilities in the state of Nebraska has been my success at the university and at Nebraska Medicine. When I started at the university, I started with $7 million in deficits in the utility program, a $2 million deficit every year that we were racking up that we didn't have appropriations to spend, and at that time. And what I loved about everything I looked at with MUD, the biggest thing that pointed out was the color of money. One of the best things that I have that I've been able to tout is finding the color of money to do the things that you need to do in a public setting when there is no money. And so stimulus funds, government grants, I begged at DAS, and as we put that together, we were able to really kick off the total renovation of the utilities at the Med Center. We now are a surplus of $4 to $5 million every year. That goes back into deferred maintenance. We use less energy today after building 13 buildings than we did in 2005. So why do I have an interest in coming here? I think just the accumulation of all the experiences that I've had, the experience in the healthcare and running a safe and reliable and a high reliable organization, along with trying to maintain the financial stability. I think I've got those tools to be able to lead folks. I also think I have those tools that as you look at where do you move forward, and I will say, I think looking through everything, I looked at debt service, I looked at cash on hand, I looked at the stability of is this someplace I want to go? And in the last 4 or 5 years, you've done amazing things. The team at MUD has done amazing things, which as a customer owner, I think are remarkable. And funding of the pension program is remarkable. And the last thing is Wednesday. I wanted to say that the biggest thing is the pension fund being funded at 88%. As a retiree of OPPD, I know what that pension fund is funded at, and you're doing much, much better. So I'll quit there. But I believe I can have the experience to really take it forward if I had that opportunity. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, because capstone in my career is even being considered for this.
Describe in detail your utility or business experience that includes managing large capital-intensive projects. Please highlight gas, excuse me, please highlight gas or water experience, excuse me. Please highlight gas or water experience if applicable.
So at the Med Center, and it's a campus of 8 million square feet, much of the facilities are 1950 air handlers in Clarkson in Hospital, all the way to Buffett Cancer Center that are brand new. We have huge challenges on the infrastructure. So some of the things that, as we looked at utility-wise and infrastructure-wise, we had a utility plant probably 7, 8 years ago that was marginal. We needed 30, 40, $50 million worth of upgrades to really get it to the point where we could take on more facilities and continue to build. So if I relate that to gas and water, if I look at that utility plant and how we manage that, I changed the approach to being more of a utility approach. So we started looking at some long-term debt, so some bond issues. We looked at free money through stimulus funds and what we could get. We were able to get almost 50% of the funds. But in a utility plant at the Med Center, we take the high voltage in from OPPD, and then we own everything after that. So we distribute it through the secondary transformers and everything to the building, and we own all the switchgear and such, and we maintain that. We also take that electricity and we convert it into chill water that goes to the entire campus. That chill water is all about hydraulics. It's all about the condition of the infrastructure, and it's having the distribution from the plants to the buildings. I also have the opportunity of making sure it's of the stability inside the buildings, and you all have 1,200 miles worth of aging water infrastructure. We probably have 1,000 miles inside the buildings that we have a strategic plan over the next 10 years to spend $230 million to replace. It's difficult. It's challenging, but I understand. I think the two things is what it takes to continue in this market to design and bring on the necessary contractors to work within that environment. So from a capital investment standpoint, since 2005 till now, I've signed over $1.5 billion of invoices that were all contracted out to totally renovate, everything from building 13 new buildings to kind of the capstone was the cancer center that tied to 5 different buildings in 5 different systems, which was really comprehensive. But it's an average. We do about $200 million a year in capital construction. All that falls underneath my preview, both for Nebraska Medicine and UNMC. So understanding the steam is a little bit different. We provide high pressure steam out to the buildings, and then we reduce it down and go to low pressure steam and hot water reheat within the facility. So I think from a critical nature, I understand what's needed for the operation. I understand the efficiencies that you need to build in. Most importantly, I understand the challenge of replacing infrastructure that is aging. So what I always say is the worst thing that can happen is not to address something and have it show up in the World Herald on Monday morning of a major incident. And I've been through many of those challenges over the last decade.
Describe your exposure or experience working with an elected or appointed board of directors. So
at the university, I have very honored to have a $2 million approval authority. So everything that I do that's $2 million and under is delegated to my authority. Above that goes to the Board of Regents. So I'm doing $200 million worth of capital construction every year. There's a lot of projects that go to the Board of Regents. The challenge with the Board of Regents at the university is they meet 5 times a year. At OPPD, when we had projects, we met every month. At one point in time, I thought that was a challenge. It's not a challenge. Meeting 5 times a year and planning that into your construction schedules and your basically getting the job done is very challenging. So we've gotten very good at having good relationships with the Board of Regents. So they know when projects are coming, what they look like, where the color of money is coming from for those projects. So I've worked hand in hand down in front of the Board of Regents to basically prepare and propose and secure what we need to do to keep the campus running on a day-to-day basis. And so besides the Board of Regents, then there's also subcommittees. So we had the Cancer Center Development Corporation that was set up to build the Cancer Center. I reported directly to the Cancer Center Development Corporation for the construction of Buffett. We have an executive committee, including Board of Regents, that sit on the new IXL facility that we're building now, that I report to, also report to the Nebraska Medicine Board. So I'm a full-time employee of the university, 100%. Nebraska Medicine leases 50% of me. So I report to the Nebraska Medicine Board, I report to the Board of Regents Board, and the chancellor at the university sits basically reporting to Board of Regents, but he's also chair of Nebraska Medicine. So we're a little bit intertwined with a lot of different things, but I have sat and I feel comfortable with the relationships and the accountability that it takes to run a large business.
Just so for clarity, do you report directly to Dr. Gold?
I report directly to the CFO. at the university. But I also have a dotted line directly to Chancellor Gold. And I will tell you, Dr. Gold's a very amazing person. He's leading up not only the University of Nebraska Medical Center, but UNO. I'm in a world of how do you communicate, and we probably have very few verbal conversations unless they're on weekends. But we text almost numerous times every day. And so it's a little bit different, depends on how you approach things. You know, a decade ago, I would have told you I would have never been a person that utilized text to communicate on an everyday basis. Today, I don't know what I'd do without it. I do report to the CEO of Nebraska Medicine, too, so I've got two reports.
CFO and CEO
Yeah.
of medicine.
Do you have any experience driving new revenue streams or product development?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity at OPPD to start up a division that provided new products and services to commercial and industrial customers. So customers like, we did over $30 million worth of work at Offutt Air Force Base. I'm well-known at Mutual of Omaha, First National Bank over the years, and others. So part of the starting up that division was Mr. Burke. I want to point out, so I was second choice. Always let Mr. Burke know that. I was second choice when I applied for the job to start up new products and services at OPPD, and so they hired somebody else. Within 6 months, that person washed out because they were scared to death, because the accountability is they wanted that division to make a net income, positive net income within 4 years. So I'm very proud of the accomplishments we had within that. So after 6 months, I got a call, and the conversation was the first person, and I won't name names. The first person just left. Would you take the job? And I said, yes, I would. And they said, well, how much do you want for it? And I said, well, you'll be fair. I said, I want to work in this field so bad that you'll be fair. Tell me what we're going to get, and I'll come on board. So at that same time, I started the division that had 2 existing employees that were electrical engineers that basically at the time knew nothing about new products and services. I also had the opportunity to, at that time, as we started up a new division, that I knew energy, but I knew nothing about running new products and services. I went into the executive master's program at UNO. Within that program, the teams that we set up, over an 18-month period, we did 2 major projects that were all about marketing and selling new products and services, and OPPD sponsored two major initiatives to do 2 business cases, and we utilized that to kick off that business unit. So as that business unit grew over the first 4 years, we grew to 14 employees. We brought on major projects at Offutt Air Force Base and Mutual of Omaha and many of the real estate companies in Omaha. And so at the end of the day, we also looked at what can we offer the customers that we can bring that in. And one of the big things was interval data, and so a lot of work around the automated metering of customers for gas, water, electricity, and steam in many of them. And so we had a lot of work at the universities. So University of Nebraska Medical Center, we did a lot of work. That's kind of where they got to know me over the years. The first year we lost $100,000. The second year we made $100,000. By the 4th year we made $800,000 in net income. Okay, so everybody around this table, as I've read, understands what net income is, and that is you pay for your desk, you pay for your lights, you pay for your air conditioning. They didn't give me a break on anything. to pay for that, to make that net income. So we did things like the ground source heat pump program that is now active yet today, the energy information and monitoring. I've used the interval data and the measurement and verification systems that we built at OPPD at the Med Center. And I'm sure you've read my resume. The big name to fame at the Med Center is we added 2 million square feet, and we've lowered our energy by 25%. And when I say 25%, that's off of the bill they had. So all the growth we had to save that growth plus another 25%. So that, from a products and services standpoint, selling products and services within the 13 county area, I think we met our accountability for positive net income. That group still has a positive net income today. They do a lot of work for me at the Med Center just because I know the team and I know what they can do, and I don't have to watch them. And I think it provides a lot of value out in the community for OPPD even today.
Describe your experience working with a senior leadership team to define and develop short and long-term strategic plans, including driving change in the company culture to support those plans.
So, two examples is in 1997, when Tim Burke came to OPPD. Certainly there was a culture that needed to be changed. I feel honored to be one of the folks that was internal at OPPD at the time that had an opportunity to work in the energy services area that he was tasked with setting up. Even though I would tell him I was second pick and not the first. And so within that, up front in 1997, this was right after the snowstorm of 1997, if anybody remembers that. I remember it very well because I was in the call center at the time, and my job was when the customer was so mad that they needed to talk to somebody and they wanted to talk to the manager, I was the manager. so good experience in customer service. But Tim brought in the and I'm still ingrained in my process of this. Brought in a strategic plan. The first time that I had been involved with a strategic plan was 1998 when we set that up, and we looked at the first time I had seen a balanced scorecard. So the first thing I put in front of me here is the first thing I went to is there a strategic plan? Is there a balanced scorecard? What are the accountabilities? What are the key performance indicators? And we worked on that probably for 2 years to really get it right and honed in, to be able to start to change the culture at OPPD. So OPPD was a very vertical run company, and the culture was if I reported, if I was a supervisor and I reported to a manager, they reported to a division manager reported to a VP. As a supervisor, I would never go even call or communicate to a division manager above my manager. It just wasn't that. If you did that, you were gone. Through that first 5 years of culture change, that all changed. And by the time I left OPPD, it was nothing for somebody that was in the ranks to call up the president or the vice president, certainly Tim Burke, and ask a question, and they would answer it. And the communication always, if that happened, if it was important, always rolled out to, good communication with everybody. And that's where I started, the culture started to change because people weren't afraid to speak up. They weren't threatened because one of their reports were going to go above them, and a lot of the ideas flowed. So so basically, the first couple of years, we concentrated on what was that main thing we were going to do, and that main thing ended up being exceed customer expectations, and all the key performance indicators rolled out of that, along with safety and financial stability and all those. So your structure that I've at least seen on the website is very, very similar to that structure that I've been used to. Not at the Med Center. I would tell you it's challenging. So I work 50% for the university, and I work 50% for the hospital. They each one have their own strategic initiatives and strategic plan. I sit on both leadership teams, and I play a part of full accountability on the full strategic plan for Nebraska Medicine, reporting to the CEO and the CFO, and the full strategic plan for the university with the chancellor and the CFO. So much of our KPIs at the Nebraska Medicine are about being a high reliability organization, and so it's being safe and reliable. It's the affordable cost for patients coming to the hospital, and how do we set up those strategic plans to do that. So we have a full set of key performance indicators on the Nebraska Medicine side, and we have a full one on the university side. I have two full performance reviews every year. One is for the hospital, and one is for the university, and sometimes challenging, sometimes exhilarating, but every year we bring them a little bit closer together. And so we're going through a lot of culture change with employees, both I had an opportunity 4 years ago to take all the facilities at the hospital, all the facilities at the Med Center, compliance and the efficiencies, business process efficiencies, and bring them all together into one big happy family. After 4 years, I wouldn't say they're one great big happy family, but they're happier than they were 4 years ago. And we've saved a lot of money through efficiencies and business processes to do that. So I'm very much ingrained in strategic planning, and so I will say one of the things I pushed 5 years ago was the infrastructure reinvestment plan. So I see a lot of things that are very interesting as I go through everything you've done in the last 4 or 5 years, because nobody up until that point 5 years ago was paying attention, especially on the healthcare side, of the infrastructure challenges, and so we've moved it from a $2 million investment a year to now $16 million a year for the next 10 years.
Tell us about your experience in driving a customer-centric business strategy.
You know, I can talk. I'll talk about OPPD first because as we did start up the energy services unit back in 1997, 98, exceeding customer expectations was the main thing, and changing culture within the organization was certainly the main thing, and it worked out very, very well. I mean, we had everything built into our key performance indicators. Was the first time we started customer surveys to rate customer satisfaction and utilize those surveys to make ourselves better. You know, so taking that experience that I had over the last 10 years, I was at OPPD. I took that with me when I went to the university, and so I brought many of those same types of strategic planning, forward expectations on customer service. Certainly, if you look at the healthcare industry, we have a whole division of patient experience folks, which is all about customer service and surveying every patient that comes in and out of the facility, whether they're outpatient or inpatient. We're also doing that on the university side, and the deans and the vice chancellors and stuff that we serve on campus. So we've gone to a lot of key performance indicators through our so we've set up work order management systems to automate the requests coming in. We have almost 12,000 employees on the Med Center campus. So we have a magnitude of almost 14,000 work order requests a month, and then serving that and taking care of those. So we're very automated for those requests to come in, automated responses back, but also we have the key performance indicators that drives the culture of how do we act. So if you say a facilities person or an IT person or anybody within the Med Center, and you come up to an elevator, if you're a patient, if you come up to the elevator in the Buffett Cancer Center, and you might see 3 or 4 people standing back, because we do not get on the elevator. We make sure that elevator is there, we make sure it opens, and we make sure the patient gets in first, goes where they need to, and we wait for the next one. Those are the types of culture that we build into our everyday work. If we see so if you've ever been on the Med Center, walking down the hallways trying to find out where you're going, you have a lot of folks that get very confused, looking at maps, pointing the wrong direction. Our culture is to walk up to that person and say, where are you going? Let me help you, let me take you there. And so it takes time out of your day to do that, but it's very much ingrained in that. And those are built into the the accountability and the key performance indicators that we have both on the university and on the hospital side.
Describe your experience guiding organizations in the interpretation and/or implementation of regulations from legislative or regulatory bodies.
So that's a big one at the medical center. I sit as the vice president on Nebraska Medicine side as the chair of the Environmental Quality Compliance Committee, and what we do on that committee is we monitor, update, revise all the policies with the environment of care. Within that environment of care, I'm just guessing at the number of policies, but they're in the magnitude of a couple hundred policies for the healthcare and clinical areas. So we are the body that is responsible and accountable to both CMS and Joint Commission when they come in to inspect your facility, and they do that about every 3 years.
What body was that?
It was the Joint Commission, which is basically a body that, so if we have deemed status, they're the body that comes in to verify that you're following processes and procedures as written. They come, so every 3 years, there's a whole staff of the folks that come in. They go through everything from procedures that doctors are doing to looking at your infrastructure, looking at your compliance for positive and negative room pressure controls, your fire barriers, anything that falls under that. So the Joint Commission visit is important.
Who are they with? OSHA or federal agencies?
No, they're So CMS is the federal body that monitors healthcare standards across the nation, and it ties to Medicare reimbursement. Okay, so if you don't maintain the body that monitors and basically they're like the fire marshal, if you would. So if you don't follow or you don't meet their standards, or you fail, you lose Medicare reimbursement. You lose Medicare reimbursement at the Med Center, and you might as well pack it up and go home. So any of the policies that fall under the environmental of care area falls under this committee, and so it's important having the Joint Commission come in and go through your facility. The last one that they were in, and this is kind of crude, but it's like having an ongoing 18-month colonoscopy. Okay, I'll use it in medical terms. It's tough. It's eye-opening, but it's all about patient safety. And as we go forward, it's about technology and where you have to keep up to date in order to meet and compete with everybody else across the nation. So I've also, if you look at, so CMS subcontracts to the state fire marshal all of their inspection and approval processes. So I've gotten to know the fire marshal very, very well over the last 10 years, first name basis, the accountability to have that relationship with the fire marshal on an everyday basis is very important. But the reason we survive is we might not be perfect, but my word to the fire marshal is if you come in and you see something, you tell me. I'll tell you what, within 45 days we're going to fix it. And it's having that relationship, I think, and that guarantee that lets us not only survive but thrive in that environment, but very regulated environment.
Describe your leadership and communication style and/or skills.
So I'm I'll call it very technical savvy. When I went from OPPD to the university, it was everybody had their assistant to type their memos and type their letters and do all that. And I think they felt hurt when I said I communicate through Microsoft, whether I'm doing a spreadsheet or whether I'm sending a memo. I find it faster to do it myself because that's what I do. So I do a lot of communication on my own. In today's world, we use a lot of email, but not to be confused that there's still nothing better than getting up and having that one-on-one communication when that communication is needed and makes sense. At the Med Center, all the direct reports that I have, we sit in the same area across the hall from each other, and we have a safety briefing every morning in the hallway. I've found it very advantageous to text. I've found that in the world that I'm in, with all the things that happen on the medical center, that we whether it's the CEO or the CFO or a manager or a supervisor, we have gone to that realm of communication. So I'm used to that. I utilize that. But there's also, I think, very importantly is, and so I'll use an example. So the university has gone through, as everybody's probably read in the paper, the major reductions that we've seen over the last 2 years. Facilities, just alone in facilities, we've reduced our budget by $2.5 million. We've not, so through attrition, we've reduced almost 12 FTEs in the last 24 months. And we've had to change our business processes, and we've had to do a lot of things differently in order to be able to do that. But what's important is in facilities we have, so if you count security and you count all the architects, engineers, and the operations folks, and some of the contract folks we have, there's probably close to 400 people. We have, and since this has started, I've always maintained a quarterly meeting to communicate to all of the employees that are going down this path with you, because without those resources and without their development, you don't have a job. And so we do several things. We present and update on a quarterly basis what's going on with the construction projects, what's going on within the organization, what's going on at the legislature, so they know. So they're not surprised, or they're not worried about what they read in the paper. We answer, we've got suggestion boxes, confidential, everywhere. We take in suggestions through that, and I address those personally with that group quarterly. Since we've had the major reductions through appropriations in the last 12 months, we've taken that from quarterly to monthly because we see angst in employees. And honestly, right now, we do that because it's a good story. We've made our reductions. We've not laid anybody off, and we're moving forward, and that's a good thing. Now, the tough thing is some people are doing more work than they were doing before because they've had to pick up the slack of folks that are retiring, and as we've put jobs together, and they've had to learn new systems. And so there's always those challenges. But I think communication on that level is critical.
Tell us about a time when you took over leadership of a team or organization. What did you do to build support, rapport, and trust quickly and effectively?
So I'm kind of thinking ahead of if I would have the honor of getting this job, how I would do this, because you have 800 employees. What I've always done going into a new position, I've always met one-on-one with every employee to start building that trust, and I do that because I want to when at the Med Center with 400 folks, remembering everybody's name and getting to know people and everything is a tough thing. The older I get, the harder it is to remember every name. I'll just be straightforward and honest with that. But I find if you meet folks, if you hear where they came from, how long they've been there, what their family is like, and you have 30 minutes worth of conversation, even though you might not remember that person's name the next time you see them, you remember things uniquely about what you heard from them. So I like to meet everybody and have a conversation and say this is who I am, get to know who you are, and start there. I have the rule, and you can ask any employee that is at the Med Center. My rule is, if my door is open, walk in. If my door is closed, come back when it's open. And my door is open 99% of the time. So I try to maintain that and do that. communicate with people and start building, it's about the relationships, and it's about the, it's kind of cliche, it's about becoming a family. It's about having that, that pig roast in the parking lot that we have to celebrate something that we achieved. And we try to do those things. I will say, I understand public entities, and I guarantee you, if you go to the Med Center, every barbecue in the parking lot was paid out of my own pocket. It was not paid out of the university's budget. And there will not be one receipt that you will ever find that has been paid out of the, and so as I've said, I was born and raised in public utilities in Nebraska, and understand that accountability. But celebrations are important.
Describe your experience working with collective bargaining units.
There isn't a union at UNMC. At OPPD, so I know there's I believe 3 unions. When I started in 1976, I was a member of 1483, the clerical union. As I moved into management, and the union said I couldn't be a member anymore, I had a lot of experience with 763, and which is electrical IBEW. So I've managed within those. Over my years, I've only sat on one across the table from 1483 that I had an opportunity to be on a renegotiation for one time. So don't have a lot of experience there. I do have a lot of experience negotiating other things other than labor contracts. But I will tell you that I understand labor. My dad was a farmer, but because it was tough to make a life and a living on 160 acres, and he was also an iron worker for Kiewit and in Hawkins. He worked on numerous of the OPPD plants over the years, and so I've become, and especially with as much stuff as we contract on UNMC sites, I've become very, very good friends with all the business managers from the iron workers still send me a present every year, but that was because my dad was part of that. But so I've been around that. Specific negotiations with those, I'd say that's probably a weakness. I have not been in there.
Describe your ability or experience in creating or expanding existing business relationships with key organizations, government agencies, corporate executives, and the public.
So I can do that in a couple different. So I'll use going down the color of money again, because if anything stood out as I went through everything, it was the color of money. At OPPD, I did a lot of research, especially starting up new energy services in the energy business. Did a lot of research with the Peter Kiewit Institute and the architectural engineers and the mechanical engineers that were there, and we did a lot of research there. So I got to know and built a reputation and a relationship with the Nebraska State Energy Office, of which I still enjoy today. Through that process, I'm also listed on a couple different patents that have been applied for over the years, and one that actually, that sounds great, but doesn't pay anything. but it is an honor to have that. So through the Nebraska Energy Office and through the stimulus projects that we did over 2009 to 2014, build a huge relationship with the Department of Energy. Okay, so if you follow the color of money, it's Nebraska State Energy Office that we may have gotten $800,000 for, and then it goes to the Department of Energy, of which I actually sit on the healthcare committee at the DOE for energy management and sustainability. But it's building that relationship so when there's money available, there's an easy way to have that relationship. The money goes where the money can be used. And it's amazing that through the stimulus program that I was still getting stimulus dollars in 2014 that nobody spent. So it's having those folks in those key spots and those relationships and knowing them to know when the money is there, because they call me. I don't track them. They call me and say, I found another pot of money that kind of fits. What do you have to utilize this on? And believe you me, I have a list of projects we can do just about anything on. So that's one avenue there. The other avenue is the community, and so I've been very active in the community over the last 30 years. I've had the opportunity of working on some of the in reporting to some of the boards at UNMC. The Cancer Center Development Board is one of those. And I won't name names around the table, but I've gotten to know a lot of the gracious donors that are in this community, and reporting to them. I'm on a text. They know how to text too, which is pretty amazing. But also have my phone number, so I've been very blessed with being able to build relationships on those. Now, they trust that when they donate something that I'm going to come in on schedule and on budget. And I'll tell you what, every meeting that is started with any of those boards is you report first on the financial and the dollars, and you then report on the schedule. And expectations are each and every time you will come in on time and under budget. Not on budget, under budget. So I think building that relationship is certainly, so you can guess who some of the donors are: the Fred and Pamela Buffett Center, the Lawrence and Outpatient Center. So you build those relationships that turn into a lot of opportunities. And honestly, I find building those relationships in the community are some of the they're the fun part of your job. Not that there's bad parts, but they're some of the fun parts. But also building a relationship with the city of Omaha. The parking app downtown, I don't know how much money I spend parking at 2-hour meters downtown, running in to see Public Works and planning, but certainly building those relationships with the city officials, also the county officials. I mean, there's reasons we have collaboration projects, and I will say at the city, the first time in ever, I think, for a public university-owned building of IXL, we got $5 million worth of development bonds. Color of money again. So follow the color of money. So building relationships with the city and the county and state officials. So that is probably, if I have to say, for the success that I've had at the university, for me, is following the color of money to give the resources to my team that they can go out and be successful, because without the dollars, without the resources, it's tough to do. We could not live on the university. I think we're somewhere around 20% for state appropriations that funds the Med Center. 80% comes from the color of money.
Well, Ken, those are all the questions that we have for you. What questions do you have for us?
So this is a question. So I'm sitting in a a very unique building right here, and this is probably the only second time that I've been in this facility. And I saw on the 2018 plan that there was a line item that said, I can't remember what it exactly was, but it referred to either replacement or movement or whatever of this facility. Knowing that, I guess that falls in my interest. What are your plans?
Well, at one point in time, thank you. At one point in time, there was some talk about us entering into a collaborative agreement with the county for a juvenile justice facility that would be co-located, and part of this structure, which is more than one, not just the one you're sitting in, but to our south and east. And that is, the county's decided they're now not going to do that. So the next step is going to be something that the next president will have to look at, color of money, and decide with the renovations that we need to do here if we continue to occupy this building, how they will do that, or if there are other options, what those options would look like. But that was based on a project at the time that looked like it was going to move forward in collaboration with the county, and unless I have heard differently, that's all but been shelved for now.
Okay, so
Does that accurately reflect what the other board members thought too? Before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So that's very interesting. So I asked that only because this is in a public utility, going from a junior engineering aide to the president of a well-known utility in Omaha, Nebraska, would be the capstone of my career. And I'm just going to tell you that. I mean, that for me, that would be the ultimate, that I could, if my father was still alive, he would be amazed. I only ask about the facility is because I'm really good at renovations and energy management and facilities and building facilities.
Is there anything going on around 42nd Dodge Street?
And so
years?
with that, so at OPPD, I was never in the architectural engineering department long enough to build a new building. So I took over operations of Energy Plaza after it was built. I had a lot of input into it, but not the construction. At OPPD, or at UNMC, so the last thing the senior level management did on my last day at OPPD, called me up to the executive conference room, and I won't say who was president then and whatnot, but they were all there. And I came up and I said, 29 years here, I'm going to have an attaboy. Here, this can be an attaboy. So I got into the conference room, and what they wanted to say was, you know what, the chancellor was in here last week, and that was Hal Moore. And you know, all of our Omaha Center and everything that's south of Emily Street, they want that, and they want it within 2 years. And we just wanted to tell you that we're not going to do it. and then they congratulated me over 29 years and sent me out. So the first thing that the chancellor asked of me when I started at UNMC in 2005 was, we need all those buildings down there within 2 years. Go talk to OPPD. So I will tell you that was 2005, and by 2009, I was able to strike a deal with OPPD, and I bought 3 lots down by the airport. And I tried to. So here's the deal, and I said, for $20 million. So we'll give you
Hansen,
$20
if I
million.
could, we're up against kind of a time
Okay,
crunch.
okay.
Do you have any other questions of us?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Did the
Very
board
good.
have any questions that would be generated based on his? Okay.
When did you start at the Med Center? I didn't see a date in here.
2005.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. We really appreciate your
busy
time
person.
today.
Yeah, I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.